Today's story is about my loving wife of 30 years who cheated on me. I discovered her affair with her young boss. Otherwise, she could have continued it. Well, let's go to the story and see what happened in the life of her and the young boss. When I regained some semblance of consciousness, the room was full of bright lights and I sensed people pulling and tugging on my body. But I felt no pain, just a mental awareness. Am I dead? Is this what death feels like? I sensed wires and tubes everywhere. I was kept in a medically induced coma for 3 days. I opened my eyes and my family was surrounding the bed. My wife Helen next to me on my right and my 5 children surrounding the bed. At this point, I had little memory of what happened or why I was in the hospital. My loving wife looked at me and said, "Dear, you have scared us this time, but you are going to be okay now." I looked at Helen and asked, "What happened?" "One of the stents that was inserted when you had your triple bypass surgery failed. It was the graft that needed a stent. A month later, it was just too weak and collapsed around the stent, which in turn stopped the blood flow." Suddenly, parts of my memory returned. The previous year, after my annual checkup, my doctor found blockages near my heart and ordered immediate triple bypass surgery. This procedure is open heart surgery and very complicated. Vessels were harvested from other parts of my body and replaced the damaged or blocked blood vessels. About a month after the surgery, further tests revealed one graft did not take as well as the other 2, and a stent was put in to strengthen it. Until now, we thought everything was okay. Because of the complications, I was off work for almost 6 months. I followed my doctor's instructions to the letter, lost weight, joined a gym for exercise, and was very careful about what I ate and drank. Helen, my wife, was my biggest supporter and was right there with me throughout. When I exercised, she did as well and even ate what I ate. My weight dropped 40 pounds within the next 6 months, and Helen lost 20 pounds while firming up her now trim 49-year-old body. She looked as good as she did when we married, and there was not a wrinkle or ounce of fat in sight. Update: I met Helen in college. She was a freshman and only 18 while I was a 20-year-old junior. Within a few weeks, we were dating exclusively. The next year, we found an apartment and moved in together. I was to graduate that year while Helen would be entering her 3rd year of college. I convinced my parents that I needed an MBA to land a good job, and they quickly agreed. That kept Helen and me together until she got her degree. And by then, I had completed my master's. So, on a warm June day following our graduation, Helen and I were married. We had the perfect marriage. We did everything together. And not just because of the same interests, but because we wanted to be together, something called love. I believe 5 kids came along within the first 7 years. And finally, after the last one, I got a little snip. We have always been very family-oriented, and our children were as devoted to us as we were to them. Family life with 5 kids, 3 girls and 2 boys, kept us busy, and we worked very hard to stay out of debt. One of us was always taking one or all of them somewhere. We kept them involved with karate, judo, ballet, dance, piano, baseball, soccer, or something else. They weren't all athletes but did enjoy participating and learned many valuable life lessons during the process. Before we knew it, they were off to college, one after the other. Then, in the same process, were married. Helen and I assumed all the college loans as well as marriage costs because we wanted to give our kids the best start possible without loans over their heads. We had saved for all this, but boy did I feel broke and would be in debt for another 10 years. But Helen and I were still young and had many more years to work, and save for our retirement. We didn't regret a penny we spent on the kids' education or marriage. It was money well invested. And even though I realized we missed vacations to exotic places like the Caribbean and Europe, I never regretted the money we spent ensuring our kids got the right start in life. After my dad had retired, I took over his large insurance business in Plano, Texas. We had 3 brokers and 2 office staff, and they were kept very busy. Helen waited until our youngest was in school, and then went to work for a pharmaceutical company in Dallas. She was a sales rep and had to visit doctors' offices in the area, promoting new drugs and giving them samples to pass on to patients. Helen was very much an extrovert and was perfect for the job. Helen's looks didn't hurt her job either. She is 5'9". Her weight before working out with me was about 140, and I thought that looked good on her. But after diet and working out, she got herself down to her college weight of 120. Our love life has always been full and completely satisfying. We have tried everything together and are always open to new ideas from the other. Neither of us has felt the need to stray, and we have never even had a chat about what it might be like. I am not a jealous man and sometimes allow others to dance with Helen when the opportunity arose. Helen never permitted any of these men to have roving hands. We aren't big into dancing, but we do accompany Christmas parties or other business-related events. My name is Edward, but most call me Ed. Unlike Helen, I have changed over the years. My hair is quickly turning gray. I have gained weight and allowed myself to get out of shape through exercise and diet. I now have a new body. Now, does that make me a bad husband? Not at all. I think of myself as a romantic and a very committed soulmate to Helen. We have romantic nights out every Friday or Saturday. She has fresh flowers delivered to her office every week, and our love life was simply amazing. Now, because of my heart issues, our love life has slackened off, but I try to ensure Helen is kept satisfied. Helen and I both work hard to make our marriage work, and I think we do a great job. Simply put, we have a wonderful life together, sharing our love for each other. After my family had left, I discovered I was in ICU and would spend several days there. The doctors were very concerned about brain damage and wanted me kept under constant surveillance. I didn't understand what brain damage had to do with my heart, but I was far too weak to either ask or argue. My family returned that night and spent a couple of hours with me. Helen would look at me, and I could see the sadness in her eyes. I told her I was going to be okay and there was no need to be sad. She remained silent. The next morning, I was visited by a police officer. I asked him if I had broken the law. He looked at me and laughed. No, you didn't break any law. I was the first person on the scene after you triggered the alarm. You obviously played a large part in saving my life. I will forever be in your debt. No, it's just part of my job. I was glad I was nearby and was able to get there as soon as I did. I have little memory, so can you tell me exactly what happened? Well, I can tell you what I know, and you may have to fill in the spaces. Around 2 a.m. last Friday night, I received notification of an alarm coming from your house. I was on scene within minutes and waiting for backup, as we thought there was a burglar inside that had tripped the alarm. The alarm company tried calling you first on your house phone, then your cell phone, then your wife's cell phone. Only your wife answered, but she was in Denver and had no clue what was going on but said you should be in the house and referred us back to you. I then started walking around the house and looking for evidence of a break-in. I could not find any proof of a break-in, so using my flashlight, I began looking in the windows. Finally, in the back of the house, I saw you lying unconscious on the floor in the kitchen. I had to break the door to gain entry, and upon a quick examination, I thought you likely had a heart attack. I immediately called for emergency services and began giving you CPR. The fire department was first on the scene, and they are all trained EMTs, so I let them take over treatment. Finally, an ambulance arrived, and you were rushed here to the hospital for treatment. I notified my office that I had to break your back door to enter your house, and since your wife was in Denver and you were in the hospital, I was told to remain at the house until the door could be secured. A carpenter was called to nail plywood across the door to secure it. I also called the alarm company to silence the alarm. Before leaving the house, I tried to clean up the kitchen. The EMTs and ambulance crew had left it a bit untidy. Amongst the mess, I found your cell phone, which I am returning to you now. And that is all I know. Update 1. From what the officer told me, I was able to fill in some of the holes in the story. I remember waking up with severe chest pains. I got up to get a drink of water and take an aspirin, but only got as far as the refrigerator before collapsing against it. The panel for the alarm was right next to me, and I somehow found the strength to press the panic button. I dropped to my knees knowing I was in serious trouble and wanting to see my wife's. I managed to say, "Hey Siri, FaceTime Helen." A few seconds later, undressed Helen appeared asking what was wrong. But by then, the alarm was blaring, and I could neither hear nor respond. She was obviously undressed. Sleeping in the undressed isn't an uncommon way for her to sleep, but the hand that appeared on her shoulder should not have been there. That is when I passed out and would have died had it not been for the perseverance of the deputy. Late that afternoon, I finally saw the heart doctor. "Ed, you may be the luckiest man I have ever treated." I didn't know how to respond to that, so I just asked, why? In any medical world, you should not have survived. I don't know how long you were on the floor before that deputy found you, but when he got to you, I think you had stopped breathing. I have no clue how long your brain had been denied oxygen, but it was certainly long enough to possibly cause damage, which is why we had to keep you in a coma for 3 days. He began CPR long enough to keep you going until the fire department arrived and took over. The ambulance crew thought they lost you twice on the way to the hospital. Once they had to stop the ambulance, and both team members had to perform CPR before they could continue. It was touch and go even after you got to the hospital. That graft that was inserted last year just wore out. We were concerned about it from the start, which is why we later put a stent in, but unfortunately, it failed. You have to know you did nothing wrong. You have lost weight, exercised, and stayed on a diet. You have done everything I asked you to do. I am not sure if you have any damage to the brain yet, but at the moment, I don't think you do. About that time, Helen arrived. She said, "Welcome," and kissed me. Because of the memories of that night, I was absolutely heartbroken. My loving wife of 30 years had cheated on me. I realized I was in no shape to either confront her or discuss the matter, so I just acted like it was hard for me to talk. I did realize at some point there would have to be a discussion, but how could I prevent myself from saying that I knew of her cheating? Was it an affair? I didn't know. I was in the hospital for a total of 3 weeks before being released. I was instructed to take it easy at home, not lift anything over 5 pounds, and no sex. Avoiding a sexual relationship wasn't hard because I wasn't sure I would ever be able to have a sexual relationship again with Helen. They say time heals all wounds, but not for me. My heart was healing, but not my heartache. Part of my heart felt like a hole had been bored through it, and I wasn't sure it was repairable. Helen took time off from work and nursed me night and day. I knew she loved me, but I wasn't sure I could ever return that love. We had been together long enough for her to sense that I was unhappy and there was something serious bothering me. Finally, after I had been home about 3 weeks, we finally sat down to talk. Ed, I have known since your attack that something serious is bothering you, so can you please tell me what's wrong? Yes, actually, what you have done may have made my situation worse. I know, so I want you to tell me everything, but please start with why. What are you talking about? I know you have had and may still be having an affair. That's ridiculous. How can you accuse me of that? Do you want me to show you proof? Are you that stupid? Why can't you be honest and just tell me? There is no proof, and I have not been unfaithful. I don't understand how you can even sit there and accuse me of anything such as this. You must be mad. Do you remember me calling on FaceTime the night I was sick? Do you remember a hand appeared on your shoulder and someone saying, "Honey, is it about that alarm again?" I saw it all, and it will be in my memory bank forever. Actually, I had not heard a word, but Helen didn't know that. Do you need any more proof? You have broken our marriage vows and disappeared on a bogus trip to be with your lover. Yes, I know it was bogus because I called your HR, and they said you took 2 personal days. I cannot begin to tell you of the hurt and pain you have caused me. I almost died, and all this just made my recovery worse. Do you understand now why I have been so cold the past 4 weeks? Now, once again, I want the whole story starting with why. If you choose not to answer, then I expect you to pack a bag and leave. Ed, this is painful. Are you sure you want me to tell you? I told you if you choose not to answer, then pack your bags and leave. I am not going to sit here and listen to your lies. Okay, I will tell you, but I would prefer not to. Please don't threaten me until I tell you everything. And if you want me to leave, then I will. Update 2. I sat there staring at her until she continued. I need to start 4 months ago at my company Christmas party. Do you remember warning me about the guy who had his hands all over me while dancing? Yes, I was so angry, I wanted to confront him. Please don't tell me you had an affair with him. Well, please be assured, we have not had an affair. David is my immediate boss, and since he started working in Dallas last fall, he has been putting the make on me. I have always been able to prevent him without a problem. I wasn't, and I'm still not interested in extramarital sex. I guess I am confused. But did you or didn't you just travel to Denver with him and spend 2 days and nights in the same hotel room? Please tell me that was just friendly and you didn't have sex, Ed. Yes, we had sex. I regret every second of that weekend, too. Oh, I bet he is younger than me and in great shape. Yes, he is 15 years younger than we are. 3 months ago, I had my annual evaluation. David knew that I have been doing the same job for almost 15 years and asked if I was going to continue doing that until I retire. You know I have been unhappy with all the driving around Dallas that I have to do, and the traffic just keeps getting worse. He asked why I never put in for a promotion. I told him I had applied for his job, but they selected him from the Atlanta office. He then explained he was on a short list for a promotion, and his job would be available again. I told him I was very interested in the opportunity to advance. He then asked how far I was prepared to go. I asked him what he wanted, and he explained that he wanted sex, and if I agreed, he would guarantee that I got his job. My mouth was hanging open. Helen was being blackmailed and had agreed to the base desires. I told him that was blackmail and could get him into a lot of trouble. He said it was between him and me and nobody else. I explained I was very happily married and did not want to do anything that would put my marriage in jeopardy. He assured me that all he wanted was 1 weekend, and then he would make sure I got promoted. Helen, why did you fall for that? I have been after you for years to quit that job. We don't need your income. And with me sick last year and now ill again, you have taken weeks off without pay. It will take us a little longer to pay off our debt, but we will manage. I know we don't need the money, but I enjoy keeping busy. Besides, with the kids' college and marriages, we needed the extra income to pay off their loans. I really, for the most part, enjoy what I do, just not the driving or dealing with my boss. So, before you finish your story, have you gotten your promotion? No, apparently. He didn't get the promotion, so he is still there. I was getting angry. Do you mean you spent the weekend ducking and didn't get promoted? Helen was visibly shaking and had started crying. I would never have agreed if I thought he wouldn't honor his word, so finish your story. He kept after me every day at work. I kept telling him I didn't want to cause any problems with my marriage. Then he started getting angry. And about 6 weeks ago, I finally agreed. We made up a story about attending a management meeting in Denver and picked the weekend we were to go, Thursday morning and return Saturday. He made all the arrangements. I remember how reluctant you were to go, but you kept saying you were hoping to get promoted. You have never in all the time you have worked for that company ever been on an overnight business trip, so I thought it was a bit odd. Okay, please finish your story. You drove me to the airport. And then I met David in the departure lounge. We had a nice flight. He had booked business seats, and he had a hard time keeping his hands off me. He booked one room with a king-sized bed. And he became passionate as soon as we closed the door. That was just Thursday afternoon. And then we spent the day sightseeing, then had dinner. We had a short nap, and he was just starting when the alarm company called. I was going down when you called. The alarm was so loud I couldn't hear you and hoped you didn't see David's hand. Of course, now I realize you did. Your face was as white as a sheet. And with the alarm going off, I realized something was wrong. So I immediately left for the airport and took the first flight home. So, you enjoyed the sex, then? Yes, David made me feel young and beautiful. No woman wants to feel old, and he offered an opportunity for me to feel young again. I regret it. I feel used, and Ed, I am so very sorry. I'm sorry I betrayed our wedding vows and the special relationship we shared. I lied and deceived you, something I have never done in our marriage, and I'm totally humiliated. Helen, I think you are telling some truth. However, you've been to and from work several times since I have come home from the hospital. I am sure you have had discussions and most likely sex with David. Yes, he makes a point of seeing me every time I go in, but I haven't had sex with him since we were in Denver. He keeps reminding me how good it was and he is pressuring me to see him again. Now he just wants me for an afternoon here in Dallas. I have told him no several times, and there is no way I will see him again. I promise you that. Helen, how can I trust you? I remember last January you got your hair dyed and then started updating your wardrobe to sexier clothes. I think your affair started soon after the Christmas party. I think I was right because she didn't respond. Her lack of response told me all I needed to confirm my suspicion. This has been an ongoing affair and most likely still is. If you had come to see me when this first started, we could have been able to avoid everything that has happened. I don't want you to go to work at all until we can figure out a way forward with this. I may need some work information, though. Can you access your company's website from home? Yes, I can log in remotely. Ed, do you want me to leave? Is that what you want? Do you want to be with David? No, I don't want to be with him. I've already told you that I want you and want to continue with our marriage. I will quit my job tomorrow if you want me to. Tell me what you want. Helen, I feel very sorry for you. You have been seduced by him, and I doubt if there was ever any possibility of getting his job. He was just using that as leverage over you. I hope he hasn't given you an STD. Helen gasped, and then I saw the tears forming in her eyes again. Oh my God, I never thought of it. We'll see our doctor immediately. Well, we haven't had sex since my heart attack, so nothing has been passed on to me. Have you had sex with anyone else since then, Ed? You must think I'm a slut. No, I haven't ducked anyone else and had no intention to either. How could you even suggest such a thing? Well, you were quite willing to fall into his bed, so how can I trust you when you say you haven't? You know what they say about once you get the taste of something. I think you have gotten a good dose. Ed, please let's not go through all that. David was younger. Do I love him? No. Do I want to keep seeing him? No, none of those. I hope I never see him again. Helen, he needs to feel our pain. Yes, I said our pain because I sense you are hurting too. Yes, I am hurting. I am so ashamed of what I have done. Are you hurting, sorry, and ashamed because you got found out or because of your adult? I am sorry we got found out. I thought if you never knew, our marriage would remain perfect as it was before my affair. Helen, I think that is the wrong answer. Maybe you need to pack a bag and stay with one of our kids for a few days. I need time to think, and you need to think about your answer. Just remember, there is a consequence for every action. Also, stay away from work and in particular that best. I got up and went into my computer room. Helen hung around the living room for a few minutes, then packed a bag and left. Update 3, left update 3. In my line of business, we have lots of resources available. One is a good friend who happens to be a private investigator. I called and explained the situation, asking that he get all the information possible on Helen's boss, whose name is David Jenkins. Also, I told him I needed Helen followed for a few days. I assumed she was going to stay with one of our children and would check and let him know because I wasn't sure how much she could be trusted. Kick her. I wanted to forgive, but that last answer was so wrong. She was sorry that I had discovered her affair, which meant to me she would have otherwise continued it. I waited about an hour and checked the location of her phone with my Find a Phone app. She was at our oldest daughter's house, so I let the pie know. He had an army of people working for him so he could trade off several people watching Helen without being noticed. I called our family lawyer, Ted Brown, who agreed to visit after he finished for the day. We often played golf together and shared a lot of gossip over a six-pack. I had a cold one waiting for him when he arrived. I told him that I just needed advice and explained the entire story. Ted immediately said several crimes had occurred. First, Helen's boss, David, used extortion through coercion to blackmail Helen to have sex in return for a promotion. He was sure the company, as large as it is, would have a strong code of conduct for employees. He also thought there would be a morality clause buried in the code of conduct. Finally, he said Helen was a victim of sexual harassment. Furthermore, having said all that without proof, it was just Helen's word against Jenkins, so I felt back at square one. I told him to give me a few days to work on this, and I would come back to him. Ted said, "Get me proof, and we have them nailed to the wall." But we had to follow procedures. He asked if I was going to divorce Helen. Not today. Maybe tomorrow. I would feel differently, but not today. I was still taking a lot of meds and went to bed early. I needed the sleep as the day had been very stressful, but sleep came hard. What was I going to do with my wife? Her fate lay with her, not me. I thought to myself that she had not told me the truth about her affair. My daughter called early the next morning. "Dad, what have you done to Mom?" "Honey, I haven't done a thing to her." "What did she tell you?" "Not a lot. She cried all night. She is a mess." "Where is she?" "Mom said she was going to work." I had expressly asked her not to do that. "Okay, call me when she returns." She said she was going to spend tonight with a girlfriend, so she took her suitcase. "I need to go. I will talk to you later." "Bye, Dad." "Bye, baby." Thinking I needed to be proactive, I called Helen. "Helen, how are you feeling today?" "Well, not very good." "Good. I've just left Karen's house." "I know. She called me and said you were going to work." "I don't know where I am going. I just couldn't stay with Karen again tonight." "Come home, then." "Are you sure?" "Yes. I will put a pot of coffee on. I'll be there in 20 minutes. And she disconnected the call. I was so afraid she was going to see her lover again. I quickly called my pie friend. "Hey, it's Ed. Do you have anything for me? We have been following your wife, and I thought she was heading for David Jenkins' apartment, but she has turned around. Now, there is a lot of information out there on David Jenkins, and we are separating the good from the bad. We'll get that report to you later today. Do you want us to keep surveillance on your wife?" "Yes, at least for the next 4 or 5 days." I was sitting in the kitchen when Helen arrived. "Grab a cup of coffee, Ed. I am so sorry for what was said yesterday. I didn't want the affair discovered because of the way it would affect our marriage. Not that I wanted to continue playing with David." She took a sip of coffee, then continued, "I am sorry because I committed adultery and broke our wedding vows. We have had an excellent marriage, and I hope you can find it in your heart to forgive me." "Helen, that is what I wanted to hear." "Thank you. By the way, where were you going this morning?" "I was going to see David and confront him. I need closure with him and all his harassment. And you wouldn't have had goodbye sex." "How did you know where he lives?" "Have you been to his place before?" "Yes, he asked for a ride home once. But please believe me, I have not stepped foot in his apartment." "So you have never slept with him in his apartment?" "No, never." "Helen, I'm sorry. You have never given me a reason to be jealous, and now I find out that bastard slept with you, so I am a little insecure right now." Helen came over and sat in my lap and gave me a big hug and said, "I need you to hold me." We had a light lunch, and then, since we were both exhausted from a sleepless night, went back to bed and held each other as we slept all afternoon. I was still unsure what path to proceed, but Helen was not making my decision easy. That night, Helen and I were watching TV when I muted the sound and turned to her. I explained to her that I had planned to sue her company as well as David Jenkins. She was surprised and tried to talk me out of suing. "Helen, why are you fighting this instead of supporting me? You have already told me that you will quit your job and weren't seeing Jenkins. Your reaction isn't what I expected from you. I would just like this mess to go away without hurting anyone else or my company. You know what extortion is, and that is what David was doing to you through coercion. Do you want him to get away free and clear so he can do it again? Do you honestly think I am going to sit here and do nothing? That bastard tried to break up our marriage, and now I intend to destroy his life. I don't think he would do it again." I unmuted the TV and said, "Wait, I will be right back." I went to my computer room and printed the documents my pie had sent. "Helen, I need to show you something that was emailed to me." I scanned each page until I found what I was looking for. Look, this bastard had to leave Atlanta because of a sexual harassment suit that couldn't be proven yet brought discredit to the company. Oh, and in college, he was charged with but the charges couldn't be proven. Why are you defending him? I almost think you have feelings for him and would like to continue having slept with him. She got up and turned to me and in an angry voice said, "Do what you need to do." Then she disappeared into the guest bedroom. I could tell she was angry and upset because of my plans to take legal action. Why was she trying to defend him? Was she in love with him? Update 4. I had another restless night of sleep. Every time I felt like we were honest and there might be a possibility of reconciling, Helen kept throwing roadblocks in my path. The next morning, I was again in the kitchen when she walked in. "Good morning, would you like some breakfast?" "No thanks, I'm going out for a couple of hours. I will be back before noon." She left with no kiss or telling me she loved me. I was sure she was in contact with Jenkins and had most likely texted him all night. I felt us drifting away from each other and deep down felt that there would be no reconciliation. Helen was gone for 2 hours before she returned. The pie called. Ed, she met Jenkins at Starbucks on 3rd Street. They had coffee and talked for over an hour before departing. She kissed him goodbye. That was all I needed to know to formulate my decision. Helen returned around noon and found me in the kitchen and poured herself a cup of coffee. Helen, didn't you have enough coffee at Starbucks? Did you have me followed? No, one of my customers works there and saw you with Jenkins. Apparently, you were quite cozy with him. Yes, I met him, and like I told you yesterday, I was trying to get closure. So do you always give a guy a kiss when you get closure? Helen, pack your bag and leave because I am tired of your lies and deceit. Go to Jenkins for all I care because we are finished. I know you are still finding ways to see him and continue your affair. How do you say to your wife of so many years that your marriage has become a sham and now it's finished? How can you give up so much in so many years of a loving marriage? I stayed in the kitchen while she packed and left the house. Later, I had a call from the pie confirming Helen was at her lover's apartment. I thanked him for the information and told him to send a bill as I no longer needed his services. The next day was very busy. I contacted my lawyer and explained to him that I wanted to have Helen served. And the quicker the better, but preferably at her lover's apartment. I split all of our bank accounts and canceled joint credit cards. I needed to get her name off of anything that we held jointly. The only thing I didn't cancel was her cell phone. I wanted to keep her on my account for a while. That afternoon, after much thought, I called my lawyer friend, Ted, and instructed him to sue both the pharmaceutical company and David Jenkins, hopefully at the same time. The company for allowing management to coerce a subordinate employee into a sexual situation through blackmail, which resulted in a broken marriage. Jenkins was sued for extortion of a subordinate employee and sexual harassment. I wanted him sued for breaking up my marriage. But it was just as much Helen's fault. I realized the case would be weak without evidence, but it would bring unwanted attention to him and the company he represented. Ted had already done most of the work on these and had the paperwork ready. Before we could sue Jenkins or the pharmaceutical company, we had to file an administrative charge with the Federal Equal Opportunity Commission. Filing a complaint was just a formality, but the first step in any harassment situation. Helen called the same day after Jenkins was served and was immediately hostile. Ed, why have you done this? David could lose his job, and any possibility of promotion will be denied. Helen, why do you care what happens to him? You assured me you had closure with him. By the way, where are you staying? Karen said you weren't with her. Have you moved in with Jenkins? I don't want to see him, especially if it will damage his career. I'm staying with a friend, just so you know. Is your friend male or female? I can't believe you are talking like this. It is so unlike you. I've never had my marriage ducked over either, and I feel you have played a huge part. Then I disconnected the call. The next day, an off-duty sheriff's deputy found Helen at Jenkins' apartment and served her with the divorce paperwork. That evening, she called again. This time crying, Ed, how could you have me served? I thought our marriage was worth more than that, and I hoped that maybe we could save it. We had a great marriage till you let that bastard seduce you. I have mattered little in your life the past few months. I knew something was up as soon as you dyed your hair, but I trusted you so much that I never checked. Let's see how long Jenkins keeps you around. And yes, I know you have moved in with him. Have you forgotten he is 15 years younger than you? You are just the current PS, and when he tires of you, I am sure he will kick your ass to the curb and move on. I am splitting everything 50/50, and that includes our children's debts. I checked on the outstanding balance today, and it is just under $400,000, so that means we each have almost a $200,000 loan to pay. I don't know how you will support your lover when he loses his job and pay off the loan as well, but that is your problem. You need to get a lawyer. And I warn you that if you fight the divorce, I will become a monster. I have videos that I will send to everyone that we know. I didn't have any videos, but she didn't know that. The next day I officially quit my job from the insurance business. I did not want to have a job or income during the divorce proceedings. This was a family business, so I could always return because of my sickness. I had worked very little in the past year, and the doctor wanted me to take it easy for the next 6 months. I was bewildered by Helen. On one hand, she wanted to continue in our marriage, but on the other hand, she wanted to keep her duck buddy. Ted called and announced the pharmaceutical company had responded to our case against them. They were caught off guard with the lawsuit and had suspended Jenkins pending an internal investigation. Ted had asked them how many sexual harassment cases it would take to have him terminated. Apparently, the Dallas office was unaware of the problem that caused him to leave the Atlanta office. We definitely got their attention, and they indicated their desire to settle out of court. I asked Ted if we could delay agreeing to settle until after the divorce because I didn't want to share anything with Helen. Helen tried to call, but I didn't want to talk to her, so I declined her call. This action must have infuriated her because she called several times during the day. and I kept refusing her calls. I think she was beginning to feel the pain, and it was only going to get worse. Helen came to the house the next day. "Ed, I need to talk to you, and you're not answering the phone." "No, I didn't answer because I have nothing to say to you. You've decided which bed you want to lay in, and it isn't mine." "Please don't be that way, Helen. I don't suppose I have made myself clear enough, and truth be known, I am tired of repeating myself. I will not tolerate being a fool. You cheated not just once and not just a weekend, but for several months. Then you tried to lie your way out of it. You have hurt me more than I can describe, and because of my health, this isn't the right time in my life to have to deal with all this. Somewhere along the line, you forgot about the in sickness and in health part of our wedding vows. Now you are no longer part of my life. You have lied to me since Christmas and carried on a clandestine affair with your boss. I am sure your company will soon be terminating him, and most likely you too. You have ruined my life, so I am going to do everything in my power to destroy yours and Jenkins too. David was terminated this morning, and I am on administrative leave. He has no savings and is very distraught. Well, that just makes my day. I guess both of you will soon be kicked out of his fancy apartment. Just remember you have a $200,000 debt you have to pay in addition to your car loan and insurance. By the way, you are over 10 days late with your car insurance premium, and under the terms of the policy, it will be canceled today. You had better find yourself a new insurance broker. You have always taken care of all that, so I am stopping my policy. You are really thick, aren't you? There is no us and there is no me in your life anymore. I will no longer act in your best interests. You have a new man in your life to do that, but I guess he is only capable of being a good duck. Your actions brought all this on, so if you want to blame someone, blame yourself. Now, unless there is something you want to discuss, you need to leave. Final update. I didn't want to move, but we had to split our assets and I couldn't buy Helen's share of the house, so I listed it and it was quickly sold. We didn't know anything on it, so my share of the payoff would go a long way to clearing my share of my debt. I found an apartment near the hospital that I could afford. Thankfully, my hospital is one of the best hard hospitals in the South and was now only a few blocks away. I packed up everything I wanted from the house and had it moved. I didn't give Helen any choice concerning what I took, as it was her fault that everything happened. Once I was totally moved, I contacted Helen and told her she needed to get her things out of the house or else I would donate everything to Goodwill. I explained that I was out of the house, which now had a buyer. She only had 2 weeks to move what she wanted to keep. Once again, I found her calling me and shouting into the phone. "You have taken all the nice things from the house. You have removed several things I wanted. I think I was generous, Helen. When you moved out of the house and into your lover's arms, you forfeited your right to anything that we bought during our marriage. You made your choice concerning what was more important, and that did not include me or the possessions in the house." Weeks passed without further communication. The sale of the house had now been completed, and we had split the proceeds. I used my share to pay off my portion of the loan. I hated owing anyone, so I felt good with that debt gone. Ted, my lawyer, called and said that Deb was contesting the terms of the divorce concerning the distribution of our wealth. We had split everything 50-50. I didn't try to hide anything, so I thought to myself, what wealth? The judge was an old guy that had most likely heard thousands of divorce cases. He asked Helen's lawyer what the problem was, since everything had already been divided. Then it suddenly became crystal clear. She wanted 50% of the insurance business. My lawyer and I talked for a minute or two and then spoke to the judge. "Your Honor, my client does not own the insurance business. It belongs to his father. My client is just an employee, and because of severe health problems, he has had to quit. So he is no longer even an employee." Helen's lawyer asked for proof, so my 80-something-year-old father stood up and asked for permission to speak, which the judge granted. I am Ed's dad, and what his lawyer said is the truth. I still own the insurance business, and it will remain in my name until my death. Then it will be passed down to my son. I looked at Helen, and if her face could tell a story, it would read shame. She whispered something to her lawyer, who then stood and said there would be no further contest of the divorce. The judge then declared the divorce final. I was a free man. However, that saddened me as Helen and I at one time had a great marriage. That was before that base Jenkins arrived on the scene. He was truly a home wrecker. My son had accompanied me to the proceedings and asked me to wait so he could visit the restroom. Helen approached me, which I am sure took some nerve. "Ed, I am sorry our marriage came to this, and apologize for lying to you and for cheating. Everything that you have predicted has come true. David left me for a younger woman. His life was destroyed after he was terminated, and he spent a significant portion of the proceeds from the house. And now I am left in debt and have a poorly paying job. I hope this makes you happy. Well, you brought all this on yourself. Everything that I have done has been a reaction to what you've done. I hope you can see that. Can we remain friends? Helen, I'm not sure. Maybe in time. But no, right now I don't think so. You've been the cause of so much pain, and every time I see you, I feel nothing but hurt and agony. Maybe in time I can get over this, but for now, that is how I feel. We had something good for many years. I turned and walked away to start a new life. The pharmaceutical company finally settled out of court. I was $500,000 richer. Maybe I should have held out for more, but at that point, I just wanted to put everything behind me. Besides, it wasn't about the money, it was about getting retribution. Helen never found a job that paid as well as the one she had and remained in debt. Life was just one big struggle after another for her. My children stayed in touch and often helped in different ways, but even they had a hard time forgiving her. According to them, she rarely dated and was looking older than her age. I felt sorry for her, but she had made her own bed, and now it was time to lay in it. Jenkins had a hard life as every time he applied for a job, his past came back to haunt him. Jenkins didn't have a penny to his name, and to avoid a nasty court case with me, he declared himself bankrupt. His car was repossessed, and he ended up working at Lowe's and living in a tiny apartment. The opulent lifestyle he was used to was gone for good. As for me, I took another 4 months to complete my rehab, then returned to the insurance business part-time, and then eventually full-time to reduce the tax burden. My dad started to transfer 10% of the ownership over to me each year. I dated occasionally, but the right woman hasn't come along yet because for some reason I compared every woman to the old Helen. I saw her at one of my children's houses at Christmas, and she looked terrible. My reaction every time I think of Helen: was it worth it? Would you trade 3 months of sex with a younger man for 30 years of marriage with possibly another 20 to 30 years to go? Today is the first day of my vacation. I woke up later than usual. The apartment was filled with an unfamiliar silence. This morning, the whole family went about their business. My wife, Julie, left for work. My son, David, went to school. I hadn't been able to take a vacation for the past couple of years, so waking up alone in an empty apartment felt unusual. I would have liked to relax with the whole family somewhere abroad or by the sea, but I could only get my well-deserved vacation time in the fall, so I'll be relaxing alone. It's better than nothing. As I was making myself breakfast, I started making plans for today. It turns out it's nice to plan your day when you can do everything without rush and bustle. Julie's work ends at 5, so she'll be home around 6:30. By that time, I decided to make dinner and gather the whole family at one table, something we haven't done in a long time. When dinner was ready, my son was already home, only my wife still hadn't returned. Could I have gotten something mixed up? I clarified with my son what time Julie usually gets home, but David just shrugged uncertainly. He said it varies and recommended I simply call her. My wife didn't answer. We decided to eat dinner together, the three of us, before the food got cold. It wasn't till 11 that the entrance door to our bedroom quietly clicked open. Julie carefully, like a thief, walked into the room and stopped in the doorway, surprised that I wasn't asleep yet. She asked why I hadn't gone to bed yet, but I ignored the question. I was a little upset that my wife didn't answer my calls today and came home so late. She's always available and lets me know ahead of time if something urgent comes up at work. When I asked why she couldn't make it to dinner, Julie tiredly sat on the edge of the bed and guiltily explained that an emergency came up at work which made the boss furious and forced all employees to stay late to fix the mistake. After telling me this, my wife tenderly laid her head on my shoulder and said she missed me and would like to spend the vacation together. The unpleasant feeling that had plagued me all evening finally disappeared. We talked for a little while longer in the kitchen over a cup of herbal tea, discussed the events of the day. I shared my plan for the vacation. My wife listened attentively and supported my idea to go to my hometown to visit my parents, see friends, and go fishing with my dad. I was planning on staying there for 3 or 4 days and even wanted to bring my son along. But David refused, saying he was too busy and didn't want to skip school for a fishing trip. The next day, I started getting ready for the trip. First, I had to dig out my hiking backpack, but I couldn't find it in the closet. I had to rummage through all the cabinets to try and locate it. In one of them, among the bags and boxes in the very corner, I found a new box with a familiar logo. I reflexively pulled it out and looked inside. It contained a new pair of women's shoes in a bright red color with high heels made of soft leather. It was clear these shoes were very expensive. This really surprised me. Whose shoes are these? Julie's. But if she bought them, why hide them here? Second, she never wore high heels and couldn't afford such luxurious shoes on her salary. 10 minutes later, as I tried to find an answer, a thought flashed: maybe this is a gift. But who would give her shoes? Friends? Colleagues? Or could it be from a man? A shiver went through me at my own musings, and I decided to shelve the question until evening when I could ask my wife directly. I continued my packing and gradually forgot about the shoes. As I gathered various odds and ends that might come in handy on the road or for fishing, I suddenly remembered my keychain that I always take with me, but I couldn't recall where I'd put it. The last time I saw it was 2 years ago. Of course, I could manage without it, But when you return briefly to your childhood home, having those keys in your pocket reminds you that this is the house where you grew up. I searched for the keys for a long time but never found them. I decided to make one last attempt before giving up and looked in the cupboard where Julie kept various junk stuff that wasn't exactly needed but seemed ashamed to throw out, just in case it came in handy. Among the endless items, I did find my keys, and as I pulled them out, I accidentally dislodged a few small pieces of paper as well. One purple sheet caught my eye, ripped from a notepad. Without thinking, I reflexively read the contents. "This is my number. Call me. I'll be waiting. Max." A multitude of questions instantly arose. I wondered who the note was meant for and how it ended up in this cupboard. I reread it several times but couldn't recall anyone I knew named Max. My wife had never mentioned anyone by that name in my presence either. Just then, the phone rang and distracted me from my musings. And soon after, I completely forgot about the purple note. That evening, I decided to stop by the local supermarket to buy groceries and a few things for the fishing trip. Right by the entrance, I was hailed and insistently tugged by the sleeve of my jacket. Turning around, I was met with the cold eyes of Anna. She was one of the friends my wife socialized with. I'd seen her a couple of times at our place but had never spoken with her. To be frank, Anna was a tall, gorgeous blonde with model looks and a lovely smile, but there was something off-putting about her. She loved shoes and bags made of crocodile and snakeskin and resembled those dangerous creatures herself. So, the sight of her always made me want to keep my distance. The woman crowded up against me, bombarding me with questions about my life and seemed unwilling to let go even when I said I was in a hurry to get home. Such obtrusive attention stirred anger inside me. I definitely did not like Anna. After 5 minutes of inane questioning, not waiting to see how it would unfold further, I quickly slipped away and, seizing her by the shoulders, roughly pushed her away from me. Anna, not expecting such an outburst, froze in surprise. I didn't want to create ambiguous situations or offend anyone, so hurriedly apologizing, I tried to explain that I really was in a rush to get home. The blonde, having regained her composure, bluntly asked if I didn't like her. This question took me by surprise. What was she trying to accomplish by asking it? "Listen, Anna," I began in a conciliatory tone. "I don't know what game you're playing, but I'm not at all interested. Besides, I'm really in a hurry. Julie will be home from work soon." "Oh, come on," the blonde interrupted me. "He's rushing to his beloved wife. You're so devoted to her. But here's the thing." She took a step back, looked me up and down, and added, "Is she really worth such loyalty?" "What do you mean by that?" I asked, not recognizing my own voice. Anna silently observed my reaction, a cunning smile appearing on her face. I crossed my arms over my chest and waited for an answer. After pausing for a few more seconds, my wife's acquaintance glanced away and suddenly brushed off her own words, asking me to pay them no mind. Silently turning away from her without saying goodbye, I entered the supermarket and hurried towards the back of the store. Staying near her was difficult. The sticky, unpleasant feeling lingered long after that encounter. That evening, before my departure, my wife was late from work again. I fell asleep without waiting for her to come home or discussing that strange situation. When I woke up in the morning, Julie had already left for work. A small note with wishes for a good trip lay on the table, which cheered me up a little. After saying goodbye to my son, I set out for my hometown in Michigan. Everything seemed normal, but something weighed on me, tormenting my heart and mind, giving me no peace. The first evening after arriving, I texted my wife that I was fine and had reached my parents' house without incident. She didn't reply. I went fishing and came back late in the evening but still got no call from my wife. The next day, I called David and asked how things were at home. My son lazily replied that nothing interesting could have happened in a day. Ah, those teenagers. They don't appreciate their elders' care. When I asked how his mom was doing, silence descended on the other end. I could tell David was trying to choose his words carefully. I asked if something had happened, and his reply surprised me. Turns out, Julie had suddenly left on a business trip for a couple of days to another city, which was odd since her accounting job doesn't usually involve business trips. Plus, she'd never traveled for work before. Something was off. I stared at my phone in confusion. 1,000 thoughts raced through my mind, displacing each other. I tried calling Julia, but her phone was unavailable again. My head started to ache, so I decided to take a walk through the autumn woods. The fresh air, quiet, and sense of nature calmed my nerves a bit and put my thoughts in order. I decided to call my acquaintance, Anthony, who worked in the same department as Julie and must have known what was going on. We met last year when he helped my family move. Slightly nervous, I dialed the number and waited for him to answer. A pleasant, calm voice came through. It was Anthony. We chatted a little about life, and when I told him about my vacation in Michigan, he knowingly replied, "So Julie went with you. That's why she needed those 2 days off." I was silent. My counterpart said something more, asked something, but I could no longer hear him. Mechanically saying goodbye, I hung up, leaned against a nearby tree trunk, and closed my eyes. I didn't want to see, hear, or feel anything. Evening quickly descended. The sky darkened, yet I remained sitting there, noticing nothing around me. My thoughts went back to when I had found that expensive pair of women's shoes, then the strange note and Anna's insinuations. However much I tried to find an innocent explanation, one clear conclusion took shape in my mind. My wife had a lover. Returning home earlier than planned, I impatiently awaited Julie. When she came back, I directly told her about the suspicious events of the past few days and openly declared my suspicion about her lover. Contrary to my expectations, she didn't even deny it. She admitted that lately she had been feeling lonely since I came home late and tired myself, and we rarely talked heart to heart anymore. A new colleague named Max had appeared at her work, who paid attention to her. At first, it was innocent compliments and jokes, but it gradually grew into infatuation. She stated outright that she loved Max and wanted to be with him but didn't want a divorce because of our son and suggested I get a mistress myself to make it fair. I was shocked by her coldness and calm in that moment. We'd spent so many years together, raised a son, and built a home, and she devalued it all with her affair as if it was perfectly normal. I couldn't take it anymore and blew up into a loud fight in the bedroom. After heated accusations, we both concluded that our relationship was irretrievably damaged and had no chance of continuing. After my demands, Julie agreed to get an amicable divorce without court proceedings. We decided we would co-parent our son together but live separately. I stayed in our apartment, while Julia and David moved in with Max. Our son hated him from the moment they first met. He took our divorce very hard and blamed everything on the man who had cuckolded his own father. David always found a reason to snap at Max, often ignoring him pointedly despite his mother's pleas. The boy made no effort to befriend the man who had destroyed his family. According to my son's stories, the atmosphere in that strange house was always tense. Things got much worse when the lover tried to take my son in hand and started demanding obedience in his home. David reacted explosively, of course, declaring he had no desire to listen to an arrogant goat who had stuck horns on his own father. The fight escalated into a brawl in which David took a fist to the eye and tried to break Max's nose. But Julia intervened just in time. When I heard about what had happened, I went to their apartment myself and broke that damned man's nose as revenge and a warning for messing with my son. I told my ex-wife David would never set foot in that house again and took him to live with me. I think life got its revenge on Julia for me because soon after, her lover dumped her and kicked her out of his apartment. I didn't want to take Julia back into our family despite her apologies and pleas for help. Soon, she rented a new apartment and wanted to take David to live with her, but he refused to live with his mother. Apparently, the whole cheating situation had deeply hurt the boy since he barely spoke to her after that. I didn't blame him because I understood that pain and disappointment in a loved one. Found out that my wife is cheating on me, but she and Josh don't know that I know. Josh, by the way, was my best friend. I know, it's a cliché, but clichés become clichés because they happen so often. I had no idea how to deal with this. The thing is, I couldn't understand why he had my wife. Don't get me wrong, my wife is definitely a beauty. She's in her 30s and even after 2 kids, she looks damn sexy in a bikini. But his wife, Carla, is just as hot, if not hotter. Carla is quite tall, standing at 5'7" with red hair that hangs down to the middle of her back and green eyes that seem to see deep into the soul. I found out that her measurements were 36, 23, 34, and I won't deny that she turned me on. After I found out about Josh and Heather, I did nothing for several weeks, trying to decide what to do. I loved Heather and wondered if there was any way to save our marriage. It seemed unlikely, but I couldn't know for sure until we talked. On Friday, I decided to meet with her but had to postpone it until Monday. Why wait 2 days? My wife received a call from a very sick friend who needed help, and she rushed to help. I had no doubt that if I called Josh and asked if he wanted to play golf on Saturday, Carla would come up and tell me that Josh was not at home and had gone somewhere for the weekend. My parents had taken the kids to their lake house. So being away from my wife and kids meant I was going to have a quiet weekend alone, and it might very well be the last quiet weekend I'll ever have. On the way home, I stopped, bought a case of beer, and firmly decided that by Sunday evening, all 24 bottles would be empty. When I got home, I put on shorts and a t-shirt and went to the kitchen. Dinner this evening will be simple, I said to myself. I opened a package of hot dogs and put them in a pot to boil, chopped an onion, and took a can of baked beans out of the pantry. I poured the beans into the pan, put it on the stove, and opened a second can of beer. I was rummaging through the refrigerator for mustard when the doorbell rang. I opened the door and saw Carla standing there. She was wearing a tank top but didn't seem to have a bra. She had slippers on her feet, and the nipples pressed hard on the t-shirt, instantly arousing me. "Are you busy?" she asked. "Partially. I'm cooking dinner and drinking beer. Do you mind if I join?" I said, stepping aside and letting her in. We went into the kitchen, and she sat down at the table. I knew she didn't drink beer, so I opened a bottle of Merlot and poured her a glass. "Dinner is nothing special," I said. "Hot dogs and baked beans, quite a simple thing." The hot dogs were boiling, and the beans were bubbling, so I turned off the heat, moved the pans to the cool side of the stove, and took 2 plates from the cupboard. I handed one to Carla. She cooked herself 2 hot dogs and put some beans on her plate. We sat down to eat, and I asked, "What brought you here? Do you know where Heather is?" "She went to help a sick friend." "I wonder when this happened." "When did that happen?" "This is Josh's disease. He looked damn healthy when he left the house. You know Josh and Heather are in on us, right? And that they are now in room 130 at Arrowhead Lodge." "I didn't know where they were, but I've known for a couple of weeks that she's cheating on me." "How did you know?" "I found a condom wrapper in his pants pocket when I was doing laundry. We are trying to get pregnant and don't use condoms, but since he cheats, I decided not to give birth to his child. I don't want to be a single mother if I get divorced. So I used part of my father's inheritance to hire a private investigator. They get together for long lunches, and when he calls and tells me he's working late, he's usually working on Heather." "How do you know?" "I was in the basement working on a bookcase that I'm making. The phone rang, and I picked up the phone in the basement. Heather must have picked up the phone on the 2nd floor a second before me, and I heard her say the word lover just as I put the phone to my ear. So I listened calmly as Josh told her that they would have to miss his usual long lunch at the Marriott because he has an important meeting. I had to listen to her say that she would miss her and that he would have to work hard to make amends next time. And you didn't do anything." "I just can't decide what to do now. I have decided to meet her when she gets home and see what happens next." "Well, what are you going to do?" "You'll understand in a few minutes." I looked at her in confusion. "What do I understand?" She stood up, came over, and sat on my lap. "I see the way you look at me, and I know damn well that if we weren't married, you'd be after me. We may both still be married, but we are no longer obligated to be faithful to Josh and Heather. They have freed us from that obligation." She hugged me, and having reached my manhood, began to excite me. I moved to get more comfortable. I looked at her in amazement. She leaned down, and her lips met mine. Carla broke the kiss and said, "I'm going to take revenge to the end." Even though we decided to have a baby, I managed to come up with excuses not to have sex during my fertile period. Just in case, I went to the doctor and got a diaphragm. "How bad do you want revenge on Josh?" "Why do you ask?" "I intend to take full revenge. I am currently in my most fertile state, and my diaphragm is in my purse. This means..." "That's exactly what it means." Carla was right. It would be full-fledged revenge if Josh raised my child thinking it was his. I smiled while caressing Carla. I discovered that she was not wearing underwear. She moaned and whispered, "Oh, yes." I broke the kiss and said, "On Heather's side of the bed." "That's where I want you. On Heather's side of the bed." She got up from my lap and said, "Come on." We both hurriedly undressed. When we got to the bedroom, Carla, naked, was stunning, and she had something I'd never seen before, except in men's magazines. She was completely shaved. I already mentioned that Heather was a beauty, but why Josh would fuck my wife when he had a woman like Carla was completely beyond me. Carla seemed to be thinking along the same lines. She looked at my naked body with puzzlement. And when I asked her what she was thinking about, she replied, "I just do not understand. Your manly tool is vastly superior to Josh's. So why does Heather want to fuck my husband when she has you and this tool at home and ready to go? I don't think this makes any sense." "Doesn't matter. You are here now, and others do not exist. Now you are absolutely right. Take me to bed and take me." I pointed to Heather's side. Carla smiled and said, "You take me on Heather's side, and then we'll go to me, and I'll take you on Josh's side." Agreed. She lay down on the bed and demanded hard sex. I did what the lady asked. She moaned as we followed each other like two animals in the heat. She begged me not to stop and to continue forever. Her words drove me crazy, and I wanted to do everything for her. The two of us reached the peak, and it was enchanting. We both started sweating, and I fell on the bed next to her. Carla propped herself up on her elbow and looked down at me. "I cannot believe this. I just can't believe it. Heather may be having it, but she wants my husband. You and I have the rest of the evening, all of tomorrow, and part of Sunday. And when we're done, you won't care if Heather comes home." Having rested a little, we played the second round, and it was no worse than the first. "Carla, won't you send me home, will you, stupid girl?" I said, pulling her towards me. We fell asleep hugging each other. This morning, I woke up before Carla, and looking at her, I couldn't help but think that my betrayal with Josh's wife had lowered me to the same level as Heather. Of course, this can be attributed to Heather's betrayal, which freed me from my vows. What she did, I can do too, right? What's good for the goose is good for the gander, right? But for me, the main thing was that I cheated on my marriage. I couldn't pretend to be moral in my conflict with Heather. True, she didn't know that I had cheated, but I knew it. I didn't notice that Carla was awake until she said, "You look thoughtful. What are you thinking about?" I told her. She replied, "I made the same promises you made when I married Josh. so I guess that makes me a liar too. But I don't think so. Josh made the same vows I did and then broke them to me. This means that we had a contract. And if we were doing law, if I remember correctly from my business law classes, Josh was in breach of the contract, and the contract could be declared void. I know marriages aren't treated that way, but that doesn't change the fact that Josh and I had a contract, and he broke it with me. Which means, at least for me, that I'm no longer obligated to honor it. You should look at your marriage the same way. You don't deceive your beloved. You only do what her breach of contract allows you to do. Enough about this. Feed me, and then we should go to my place and reconsecrate the side of the bed where Josh slept and work on getting me pregnant. She started to excite me, and then we took off. If she wasn't pregnant by the time we fell asleep at her house, it wasn't because we didn't try hard enough. In the morning, she asked when the children would be home, and I replied that it would be around 6. She fed me steak and eggs for breakfast, telling me that I would need energy if I was going to do anything nice for her that day. We parted ways around 4 so I could head home and be there in case my parents arrived earlier than expected. Before I returned home, Carla asked me if I had made my decision, and I admitted that I had not. Are you a good enough actor to pretend that everything is fine? I don't know. Why is this necessary? Because, in my opinion, the best revenge is to continue doing what we did over the weekend. I want to continue until I get pregnant. Besides, you have to think about your children. Divorce will tear you away from them because here the courts always give custody to the mother. You might be able to see them every weekend, but that would only be if Heather wasn't too mad at you to find some reason for you not being able to see them. My advice is to put up with this bitch, live as usual, except that you and I will have wild sex every chance we get. I doubt it, Carla. Sooner or later, the traitors will be caught. If they catch us, it will reduce our chances of maintaining a high level in any conflicts. We caught them because of stupid mistakes. You found out about Heather because they were both stupid enough to use home phones to communicate. I found out about this because Josh was so sloppy that he brought the evidence home in his pants pocket. We will not give this kind of chance. We'll buy a couple of track phones at Walmart and use them to keep in touch and to keep our spouses from accidentally finding them. We'll leave them on our desks. We will always know when they meet, and we will get together at the same time. No, we can't do that. If Heather calls and says she has to work late, I'll have to babysit. And if they do it at lunchtime, we won't be able to either because I can rarely take a long lunch. You sometimes work late, don't you? When you do this, she will have to be home to look after the children. I play cards with a few girlfriends from college every Wednesday night, and I sometimes stop for drinks after work with the people I work with, and Josh is used to it. Another thing we can do is tap into our phone lines so we know what they are talking about. Are you in game? You've thought of everything, haven't you? Maybe I missed something, but if we both work together, I think we can cover all sides. Are you sure you want this? I'm absolutely sure. As I told you at the very beginning, I want to get back at Josh. I gave him everything I have, and he stabbed me in the back. I spoil this son of a bitch to death, and he cheats on me. There's no way in hell I'm going to let it slide. My idea of perfect revenge is to let him raise another man's child. And what could be sweeter than having that child's father, the husband of the woman he's cheating with, in his bed? I also want revenge. I think I can take revenge after seeing how this asshole raises my child. But I'm not sure that I can pretend to be a loving husband for a wife who cheats on me. You will be stimulated by your mistress, right? Over the last 48 hours, you seem to have really enjoyed what I gave you. You can have as much sex as you want at any time and for as long as you want me. You know that such an offer is damn hard to refuse. I certainly hope so. And it's not all. Josh wants 2 kids, a boy and a girl, and I want them both to have the same dad. What if the first child is a girl? I know he will want a son. Are you ready to keep trying? Yes, until we get caught. We just have to make sure that doesn't happen. Yes, and one last thing. Can you act naturally around Josh? It will be hard not to grin, knowing that I will try my best to give him a child to raise. But I think I can handle it. I think I'll stay after work with the girls on Tuesday. What a coincidence. On Tuesday, I will work late. My parents dropped the kids off at 6:30 and said they hadn't eaten yet. So I took them to Mickey's and wasn't surprised when they said they wanted a Happy Meal. After we ate and came home, Heather asked where we were and said sharply, "Why didn't you call me and ask if I wanted to have dinner with you? You didn't tell me when you'd be back. You didn't call me on my cell phone and didn't say that you were back." I answered just as sharply. She gave me an angry look and went to greet the children. While Heather put the kids to bed, I started looking into it. I learned how to tap a phone line using a voice recorder and decided to buy 1 or 2 on the way home from work the next day. I would buy 2, to bet not only on my line but also on Josh's line. I'll have to call Carla and make an arrangement. I noticed that Heather didn't shower before bed. She may have showered before returning home, but then again, perhaps she didn't. When Heather went to bed, I cited an upset stomach and told her that maybe we could have sex the next day. On Monday at 3:20, my secretary told me that Mrs. Carla Marvis wanted to see me, and I asked Shell to let Carla in. Carla came in, closed the door behind her, came up to me, and kissed me. It's a pity that your secretary is sitting outside your door. If she weren't there, I would have locked the door, and you could have had me right here on your desk. If you can wait 10 minutes, she'll go home at 3:30. Wow, I was just kidding, but I can easily kill 10 minutes. She opened her purse, took out her cell phone, handed it to me, and said that she had already written down her number in it. The plan for tomorrow is this. At lunchtime, I'll run to the Marriott and rent a room. I chose the Marriott because to get to the rooms, you have to go inside and walk down a hallway. No outside doors, so anyone could see us coming in. I'll call you and give you the room number. I'll finish work at 4:30 and go straight to my room. When you get there, go to a bar and have a drink. And if anyone there recognizes and sees you, they will think that you just stopped for a drink on the way home. After drinking, you come to the room where I will wait for you. So, how sounds like a great plan? On the way home, I'll pick up what we need to tap our phones. When will it be convenient for me to come and do this? It's already been done. I went online and found out how to do it, and there is a voice recorder I can use. At that moment, Shelley stuck her head through the door and said, "I'm leaving. See you in the morning." When the door closed, Carla stood up to lock the door. It was quick, no frill sex, and we both reached our peak. She said, "This will keep me going until tomorrow, but you better come back prepared for a long and energetic evening. Maybe you should take some vitamins on the way home." I stopped at a radio station and bought 2 tape recorders and 6 extra cassettes. I took a second tape recorder to listen to recordings in my office. I will save the tapes which contain something of the two lovers until the day I tell the judge the reasons for the divorce. When I returned home, Heather had already prepared dinner and brought wine, which was a good sign that she was in a loving mood, and I was surprised by this. She spent the weekend having sex with her lover, and now she comes home wanting more, transformed. Was she a nymphomaniac? Or was she simply enjoying her ignorance as it seemed to her husband after being with her lover? Maybe someday I will find the answer to this question. Sex with Heather was always good, and she loved doing it all. If Carla was being honest and not just playing to my ego when she said I was bigger than Josh, I have to wonder what he had that Heather thought I lacked. Another question that I may someday get an answer to. When dinner was over and the kids were parked in front of the electronic nanny, Heather said, "You know you have work tonight, right? About, and why is this? You need to make up for what you missed last night. I will do everything in my power. You are always amazing, my love." I wanted to say, "Then why are you cheating on me with Josh?" but remained silent while Heather read to the children. I went down to the basement, found where the phone line was, went into it, and connected the recording. Heather doesn't leave for work until an hour after I do, and I think that's when she and Josh will talk. I could be wrong about this. Heather had a cell phone, and of course, they could talk on her work phone while she was at work. I was betting that the call I overheard was a sign that they were talking while she was home. We did it 3 times that night, which was a rare occurrence for us. We had sex 3 or 4 times a week, but usually only peaked once, although sometimes twice. Here's another thing to think about. The warning bell rang just after we finished our 3rd time. We were lying next to each other when Heather said, "Have you thought about the fact that we could have another child?" "Not real," I said, wondering if this had something to do with Josh. "I'm actually toying with the idea of getting a vasectomy so you can get off the pill, and we'll still be safe." "Why did you want more?" "We gave birth to Mike and Anna so soon after the wedding that we didn't have the opportunity to go somewhere and see anything. Now we are still young enough for this. When Mike and Anna become independent, young children will rule this out. Besides, right now, we need the income from your work. We will be hurt by your leaving work due to pregnancy." I had very bad thoughts running through my head. I'm sure Heather knew that Carla and Josh had decided to try for a baby. Did Heather want to get Josh's first child before Carla got him? Was there something Heather had against Carla, or was it just her trying to lay claim to her lover? Either way, it made me think that I couldn't carry out Carla's plan. I think I'm going to have to leave Heather pretty damn soon. And then a very, very bad thought came into my head. Were Mike and Anna even mine? I had to find out. I fell into a very restless sleep. The next day, after a grueling session in room 2002 of the Marriott Hotel, I expressed my concerns to Carla. "I can't even imagine what you should do," said Carla. "Should I talk to her about Josh now before she gets pregnant? Of course, she may already be pregnant and getting ready to throw the baby at you. I know what I would do, but I'm not a man. And I'm not you. What would you do?" "I would just tell her that I don't want any more children, and just in case, I would wear a condom until I get a vasectomy. If she does get pregnant, that's when I'll have a confrontation. I'd say we probably need a DNA test to find out if it was mine or Josh's. This should make her thrash around. If I get a vasectomy, it will ruin our revenge plan. Just don't do this until I'm pregnant. It will be a failure because I want all my children to have the same father. Maybe we'll get lucky. Maybe Heather was just feeling you out. You said you didn't want to, and that would make her say no. We'll just never know until she comes up to you and tells you the rabbit died. She looked at her watch and said, we have a couple more chances for you to make me a mother. I stopped on the way home and bought a bunch of condoms. That night, when Heather wanted sex, I pulled out one of the condoms and started putting it on. Why else is this? I decided to use them until I get a vasectomy. I really don't want any more children. Well, take it off. I hate this feeling. I'll stay on the pill and use spermicide until I can adjust to the diaphragm. This way, we will be completely safe. You hate feeling them, I thought as I finished rolling it. Heather was a virgin when we got married, and I never used a rubber band with her. When did she realize she didn't like feeling them? And with whom? Whatever it was, it only strengthened my decision to find out about the paternity of my 2 children. Then I remembered that it was because Josh used rubber bands when he slept with Heather that Carla realized that Josh was cheating on her. I was still planning on getting tested if you don't already have spermicide. I don't have it, but I'll buy it tomorrow and make an appointment with the doctor about the diaphragm. I don't want you to have a vasectomy. I want to keep this option open in case you ever change your mind. I left the rubber band and climbed onto the bed. We had sex. After we finished, I went to the bathroom. When I returned to the bed, Heather was lying on her side sleeping. It was time to go down to the basement and check the tape recorder. A couple of unimportant calls and then, hello, good morning, honey. Do you miss me? Of course, you know. Shall we have lunch today? Yes, but I think our lunch meetings will end soon if we don't find somewhere cheaper. These motel rooms are killing my family budget. I can't keep pulling out of it. Sooner or later, I won't have enough money to feed my family, and I will understand why. I'll try to think of something on Wednesday evening. This one, and here he used obscene language referring to Carla, had a card party. Have you already figured out how to get out of the house? Not yet, but I'm working on it. I'll cross my fingers. I need more from you than I get in a 45-minute lunch break. Me too, my love. We'll talk tomorrow, certainly. Bye-bye, baby. I almost puked when I realized I was with Heather after she let Josh use her this afternoon, but I managed to hold on. I found it interesting that my unfaithful wife not only cheated on me but also paid for the room. Yes, and how will Carla react when she hears her husband call her? The only thing I knew for sure as I walked up the basement steps was that Heather wouldn't be able to leave the house on Wednesday night. On Tuesday, when I got to work, I took my phone out of my desk drawer and called Carla. When she answered, I said, "Good morning." Listen, holding the recorder up to the phone and pressing the play button. After listening to the recording and hearing curses addressed to her, she said, "When the time comes, I will kill this bastard." Yeah, about Wednesday. What are you going to do? I think I'll have to work late on Wednesday, but I won't let her know until it's time to finish work. She doesn't have enough time to call a nanny. Did you hear that Heather paid for the room? This doesn't surprise me. Josh has always been cheap. I think if you're going to work late, I'll skip my card night and we can meet. I'll call you tomorrow and arrange everything. At breakfast on Wednesday. Heather asked me if I had plans for the evening. I said no and asked what was wrong. The girls from work were talking about having a couple of drinks after work and chatting. I can't do this if you don't look after the kids. It's not a problem. I kissed her and went to work. I went to the Marriott, rented a room, and when I got to work, I called Carla. Heather finishes work at 5, so I called her at 4:40 and told her I would be late at work. There are some issues with Henderson's contract that need to be resolved before Ethan goes to meet them tomorrow morning. Sorry for the late warning, but I really can't leave now, so don't wait for me. Love you. Bye. Pleasantly tired, I returned home by nightfall. It's a good thing Heather was already asleep because if she had gotten up and wanted to play, I'm not sure I would have been able to handle it. For the next 5 weeks, Carla and I met on average twice a week, and we always knew in advance what Josh and Heather were doing. It was during this 5th week that Carla said, "Congratulations, Dad. How about having sex with the mother of your child? How does Josh feel about this? He doesn't know yet. First, I needed to tell the baby's father. Now I can tell Josh. You know, I said, the only thing we didn't do was go on a weekend trip together. I think we owe it to ourselves to celebrate pregnancy just once. We just need to do it without the two of them putting 2 and 2 together and coming up with the correct answer. It's funny that you brought this up today. Josh must fly to San Diego to settle some matters with his father's estate. He's going to see some relatives this weekend before going to see his lawyer on Monday. If you can figure out how to get away for the weekend, we can go somewhere without anyone having to think about it. I think I can handle it." I took my cell phone and called my brother, who lived in Akin. I asked him to call me at my house right after I left for work in the morning and tell Heather that I needed to come see him on a family matter over the weekend. I told him I would call later and explain what was happening. He said he would take care of it and we said goodbye. I turned to Carla and said, "All we have left is to decide where we want to go." The next morning, Heather called me on my cell phone about 5 minutes after I left the house. "You need to call Bill as soon as possible. He has an urgent family matter and needs to talk to you. I will call you." I waited until I got to work and called Bill. I told her that Brian, his son, needed a kidney transplant, and I needed to know if you would agree to donate a kidney, and if so, if you would come to check the compatibility. So, what's up? I explained the situation to him, and he told me that I could count on his help anytime I needed it. I knew I could count on him because he hated cheating wives. He was a single father because his wife cheated on him. He kicked her out and stayed with the children when Martha died in a car accident. I called Carla, told her how everything worked out, and we agreed to go away for the weekend. I called Arrowhead Lodge and was even able to book room 130, very fitting, I thought. At 2, I called Heather and told her I was flying to Aachen. I'll go home and pack my things. My flight leaves at 8, and I need to be at least half an hour early to check in. I don't want to seem selfish, but I hope your kidney doesn't work. I need you to have all your parts so that we can go all the way to old age together. Damn it, Heather, the way you say it makes me think you really love me. You better not have any doubts about this, Bob. Not a bit. If only you knew, I thought, saying goodbye and hanging up. When I got home, Heather was waiting for me in what she called her FCK me costume. Naked, wearing FCK me pumps. Do you have time to charge me while you're away? Since I really didn't need to rush to catch a non-existent flight, I said I had time. After sex, Heather lay on the bed, and when I got dressed, she said, on the phone, you spoke as if you doubted that I loved you. Just kidding, baby. I know very well how much you love me. Yes, of course, you can see it every time you cheat on me with Josh, I thought. I don't want you to ever doubt that love, never. The weekend with Carla was grueling. We made love and went to bed. Woke up in the morning, made love, and then went to breakfast. We returned to the room and made love until lunch. We'd eat and then go back to the room and make love. We'd go out to sit by the pool for a while and then come back and make love. Let's go out to dinner, have a few drinks, and dance, and then make love again, repeating the next day, and then again on Monday morning. We promised each other we would do it again and then headed home. When I got home, Heather was at work, so I went down to the basement and checked the tape recorder. First, Bill called on Friday morning. A couple of minutes after she hung up, Josh called her. Have you figured out how to free yourself for the weekend? I would love to spend a couple of days with you without interruption. No, Josh, I couldn't come up with anything, and the truth is that I don't want to come up with anything. What's the matter? Why? You know, I felt guilty for what I was doing. I love Bob, and he deserves better than to have a cheating wife. I was going to tell you, it's over. I need to devote myself to Bob. Come on, Heather, you've been making love to me for almost a year now. How could you do this if you love him as much as you say? First of all, I need to correct you. I've never made love to you. I had sex with you, but I never made love to you. The only man I make love to is Bob. No, Josh, it's not FCK. I love this man and try to show him that I love him every chance I get. If you love him so much, then why are you sleeping with me? Excitement about it. The thrill of doing something illegal and forbidden. It was a big thrill for me to go home and make love to Bob after I FCK'd you. It gave me some huge releases. Giving him a few wet seconds turned you on. If so, why not continue? I never gave him wet seconds. I was always pure when I made love to him. FCK. Heather, you've never showered before leaving a motel. I keep a travel bag at work, and it contains everything I need for a shower. Bob never even came close to feeling the slightest trace of you. No, Josh, I'll end this before we get caught. I love Bob and don't want to lose him. Just be glad you got me drunk the first time. Maybe so, but you weren't drunk all the other times. It all depends on what you mean by drunk. I was drunk with the excitement of making love to Bob after you FCK'd me. I wanted to see if there would be a thrill and excitement if I did it sober, so I let you do it a second time, and that was the only reason I kept doing it. We got away with it for a little over a year, but I just realized that the feeling I have for Bob after being with you is not worth what it will cost me if we get caught and I lose Bob. Have fun in California, Josh, and when you get home, don't call me. Bye. Interesting, I thought, taking out the film and inserting a new one. I unpacked my things and went to work. Around 11, I called Carla, and when I said hi, she said, I miss you. Is everything okay? You are sexy, yes. I want you to listen to something. If this is a Friday telephone conversation, then I have already heard it. What do you think? It looks like she started to think with her head and realized that she could lose you. What are you going to do? I've already decided that I'll only stay with her until the kids turn 18. And I don't see anything that would make me change my mind. If she meant what she said to Josh, it would be easier for her to hold on, but the trust was gone. Even if she breaks up with Josh and they never meet again. How do I know that somewhere down the road she won't start missing the thrill and excitement of cheating and hook up with some new guy? You can always hit her with, if you're really done with Josh, maybe we can move on, but you won't get a second chance. No, I cannot. This would give away the information that I have a wiretap on my phone. And as I said, the trust was gone. I need a way to keep track of what she's up to. Besides, she knows me and understands that if I knew, I would share it with you. She could say this to Josh, and it would make him think, and we don't want that. Is this your roundabout way of saying we'll keep going like this? You heard the conversation. They got away with it for a little over a year, but you and I only got away with it for a couple of months. They owe us another 10 or 12 months. And then, of course, there are penalties and interest that could make it even longer. I would like that Carla and I continued to see each other on average twice a week until her 7th month. She wanted to continue, but her belly was so big that I couldn't make love to her without hurting her. That's right, we need to take care of babies. An ultrasound showed that Carla was having twins. She gave birth to 2 beautiful little girls, as she predicted. Josh wanted a son, so 2 years after the twins were born, she became pregnant again. And this time an ultrasound showed it was a boy. We made love until her 8th month, and then we separated. We both felt like we'd gotten away with it long enough that if we got caught, Carla would be a single mother with 3 kids to raise, and neither of us wanted that. As Carla put it the last time we were together, the goal was to take revenge on the deceiver by giving him other people's children to raise. To do this, I need to stay married to him. Josh got a promotion that required him to move, and I haven't seen or spoken to Carla since they moved, but I think about her often and fondly. It's been 6 years. And as far as I know, at least based on the phone wiretapping, Heather hasn't contacted anyone else. On the other hand, she and Josh had been doing what they were doing for over a year, and I had no idea she might wise up and stop using her house phone for illicit communications. But I've been keeping a close eye on her and have yet to see anything that would indicate that she's doing her best to spoil the hell out of me. I'm critically rethinking my plan to leave her when the kids turn 18. That will be another 4 years for Mike and 5 for Anna. I'll just wait and see and subscribe to our channel so that your second chaff doesn't cheat on you. And go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think about listening to the next one. When I met Charlene, I was 24 years old. The girl was a bit younger, just finishing college. Like all lovebirds in the beginning of our relationship, we spent a lot of time together. When we started thinking about living together, we rented a 1-bedroom apartment on the outskirts of the city and moved there, getting closer and getting to know each other in everyday life. For about a year, we lived just the 2 of us until we started talking about marriage, and I proposed to my beloved. As we prepared for the wedding, we dreamed out loud about our own apartment, about traveling together, about a big dog, and so on. Money was tight back then, but since my college years, I worked as a website developer, and by age 26, I had some savings. So, after the wedding, we were able to buy our small apartment, which I took out a mortgage for in my name. I remember how proud I was because it was a big step towards an independent life. Charlene and I moved there and gradually began to pay back the loans together. It took several years before we paid it all off and got rid of that financial burden. Right after that, my wife started talking about traveling around the States. She had dreamed back during our honeymoon of visiting cities like Seattle, San Francisco, and Portland, but because of the loans, we couldn't afford it. I understood her desire to get away somewhere and unwind, but at that moment, I wanted to move up in my career, earn a little more money so we wouldn't go hungry or get into debt again. After traveling, the proposed travel date kept getting pushed back, and I could see Charlene's mood changing before my eyes, worsening. It seemed silly because her job brought in much less money. You could say the 2 of us were practically supported by me alone. Yet, the accusations about why we still didn't have money for the trip were targeted at me as well. The atmosphere at home became more tense when I started working remotely from home. After that, my wife and I were like cats and dogs. For a period of time, I was getting few orders from clients, and because of the need to start saving, Charlene got even angrier at me. Although, to be honest, she didn't really lack anything. Even with fewer orders, we had enough for the necessities, the apartment, groceries, and household items. There was always money for that. But the very fact that I started giving my wife less money made her resentful. She took offense but didn't openly express her grievances and put up with it. Then she simply stopped raising this topic as if no talk of a trip had ever taken place. At first, I was even glad and assumed that she understood my situation and had decided not to bring it up for the time being. The first alarm bell rang when she started coming home with bags of new clothes. With a joyful face, Charlene announced that she had gotten a raise at work, and I didn't suspect anything ambiguous about it and sincerely rejoiced for her. Moreover, after this event, my wife seemed to blossom. She always smiled broadly when she saw me. She started cooking at home more often. She would dance while cleaning the house. Soon after that, she became actively going to the gym and getting massages at a new fitness center that opened near our home. Who would have thought that it was the mention of massages at the fitness center that would allow me to uncover the secret of my wife's change? In short, she started going to that fitness center every other evening, literally for 2 or 3 hours, and she really started working out hard there. She would come home tired with a bruise on her arm or on her leg. I told her to be more careful and naively offered to give her money for a personal trainer so she wouldn't overdo it with the exercises and hurt herself. Under his supervision, Charlene just shook her head no and explained that the bruises were not at all from the physical exertion, but from the massage. According to her, the massage at that center was the best in the city and it allowed her to relieve physical tension from the body after workouts. So she had no intention of giving it up just because of a few bruises. Actually, it seemed strange to me that people could have bruises on their bodies after a massage. Yes, I admit that the masseuse could have taken the skin carelessly or accidentally used too much force, but the specialist's job is not to harm their client. It seemed weird that she came home with bruises so often. On top of that, at one point, my back started hurting, especially in the area of my shoulder blades and near my neck. Since my job was website development, I spent a lot of time sitting, which negatively affected my posture. Impressed by Charlene's enthusiastic stories about the massage, I decided to also go to that fitness center for the service, hoping to relieve the pain in my back and also to see just how the masseuse performed the massage if bruises were left so often. That's when the alarm bells really started ringing. The receptionist at the entrance cheerfully informed me that there were no massages there and never had been. There were dumbbells, medicine balls, and other sports equipment, but nothing more. Well, this is interesting, I thought at the time. After looking at other places that offered massages, I went and got one done elsewhere. I came home that evening when Charlene was already home. I wanted to ask what was up with the massages, but rephrased the question a bit. So, how was the massage? Still doing it there? No pain? I asked her and, of course, got an affirmative answer. I didn't confront her right then and there that there had never been any massages at that fitness center since the day it opened. I didn't want to think about secret meetings with another man because I had no direct proof of it, but no other options even entered my mind. So I decided to act more cunningly. Since I had been transferred to remote work from home, I no longer needed to drive to the office every day, so my wife used the car. I installed a hidden camera in the vehicle, which streamed video in real time to my phone and showed its location. That's how I hoped to track whether Charlene really was staying late at work and going to the gym. And that's how the truth came out, as I expected. That evening, when Charlene was supposed to go to the fitness center according to her schedule, she got in the car and drove off, completely not in its direction. Instead, she went to an empty parking lot in the evening near one of the shopping malls on the outskirts of the city. I saw my wife unbuckle her seatbelt and move to the back seat of my car, constantly messaging someone and glancing out the side windows. Soon, an elegant man in his 40s got into the seat next to her in the back. He kissed Charlene on the cheek. They talked about something for a while, holding hands. At some point, he put his hand on her knee and leaned in for a kiss. My wife reached for him in return. I tensely watched all of this on the camera stream. I felt nauseous from what was happening, but I couldn't look away from my phone screen. The kiss quickly turned into passionate embraces. I saw the man's hands greedily roaming over my wife's body as he unbuttoned her blouse. She enthusiastically responded to his caresses, running her fingers through her lover's hair and pressing her whole body against him. They kissed as if they were about to have sex right there in the car. I sat there paralyzed, unable to look away from the screen. How could Charlene so crudely betray me and our union? I felt rage boiling up inside, unable to take it. I quickly got dressed and ran over to my neighbor friend's place. With no explanation, I asked to borrow his car, promising to return it soon, and getting the keys, I drove towards the supposed meeting place of the lovers. Luckily, I got there without traffic and quickly, right at the hottest moment of what was happening. The car was rocking slightly on its wheels. The rear windows were fogged up from the stuffiness inside. They say anger blinds you, but I felt clearer than ever in that moment. When I abruptly opened the rear door closest to the lovers and with one jerk, pulled them both outside, just like that, half undressed. The first blows landed on the man's face, causing blood to spurt from his nose. I felt a crunch under my fist as I punched him again. Charlene was screaming with tears in her eyes, begging me to stop, but fell silent after a powerful slap hit her across the face. Luckily for the two of them, it ended at that. I left them both right there, lying on the cold asphalt, and got behind the wheel of my car and drove home. Before leaving, I'd only told my wife to take her suitcases with her things from our place and never come back. That's how it all came out. The next day, Charlene tried to come home and explain, but I didn't want to listen to her excuses. The betrayal had happened. No more words needed. Her things were already outside the door. At that point, the only thing I managed to say in conversation with her was about the upcoming divorce. We divorced quickly and without unnecessary talk. Since the apartment mortgage was in my name according to the documents, it went to me after the division of property. But I soon sold it because I felt uncomfortable from the memories associated with it. With the remaining money, I went traveling around the States myself, which I had long dreamed of doing but couldn't afford before. As I later found out from mutual acquaintances, the man I had beaten up was her boss. After my encounter with him, he was apparently afraid to continue communicating with and meeting my ex-wife, so he soon fired her and stopped financially supporting her. Charlene was left without work or financial support and was forced to return to her parents in a provincial town. Remembering this story still hurts, but it's better to live with the bitter truth than a sweet lie. I want to share my story of how my entire life came crashing down. A life filled with lies. Just a year ago, I considered myself the happiest man on earth, rejoicing in life and believing I had the most wonderful family, my beloved wife, Alice, and our beautiful daughter, Angel. It was my little girl who didn't allow me to completely break down. Now, when it all happened, Alice and I got married 8 years ago when she had just turned 18. And I was about 22. Our daughter, whom we named Angel, was born a year later. The girl really did look like an angel, big blue eyes, blonde hair, and a radiant smile. Even her calm, obedient personality added to the image. My wife and I lived wonderfully, rarely arguing. I earned good money and built quite a career over the years, becoming head of the commercial department. But I didn't neglect my family, directing all my attention and care to them. Every free minute went to my girls. To this day, I still can't figure out why they did this to me. I remember every detail of that fateful day as if it were today. I woke up, had breakfast, kissed my wife goodbye, sent our daughter off to school, and left for work myself in a cheerful mood. 2 hours later, Alice called me and said she had taken a pregnancy test that morning, and it was positive. She had called in sick for the whole day, went to the gynecology clinic, and the result was confirmed. She was about 4 weeks pregnant. Alice wanted to run her errands and prepare something special for dinner before I got home so we could celebrate. I was thrilled with the news. At work, I told my colleagues and boss, who congratulated me on the new addition to the family and even let me leave early. I didn't call my wife to say I was coming home early. I wanted to surprise her. I didn't even suspect the surprise that awaited me. I picked our daughter up from school and took her to my parents' house, sharing the joyful news. They understood Alice and I needed alone time, so my dad promised to take our daughter to school in the morning. For the surprise, I bought a cake, a beautiful bouquet, and a gold necklace as a gift, and hurried home. I opened the door quietly. My wife didn't notice my presence. She was sitting in front of the computer, video chatting loudly with her friend. I quietly stood in the doorway, intending to surprise her with my early arrival, but the conversation I overheard plunged me into profound shock. Her friend asked how far along Alice's pregnancy was and then bluntly asked if I was definitely the father. Of course, Alice replied confidently, "The last time I spent time with Charlie was 2 months ago. Joe and Nick and I always use protection. I told him from the start that if I ever wanted kids, they would only be with my husband. A year and a half ago, when we first started seeing each other, I made it clear he shouldn't expect anything serious." "What about that hunk from the exhibit?" her friend asked. "I almost blew your cover with your husband." "Oh, please," my wife answered. "Children don't come from unconventional sex." Both women laughed, as there was nothing remotely wrong about any of this. If someone had stabbed me in the chest with a red-hot sword in that moment, it probably wouldn't have hurt as badly as hearing all of this. As I stood there listening to their conversation, there was only one thing I wanted: to die. It felt like an invisible band was squeezing my temples and throat. There was a ringing in my ears, and everything around me became not just black and white, more like black and gray. I don't remember entering the room or Alice turning around in fright. One look at me, and she knew I had heard everything. Her reaction was pathetically cliché, like a cheap soap opera. "You misunderstood. It was just a joke," she said in a trembling voice, adding insult to injury and making me out to be a fool. She fell to her knees, started screaming, begging for forgiveness, for our daughter's sake, for the baby's sake, for our family. Alice wrapped her arms around my legs, kissed my knees with tears in her eyes. I looked at the spectacle in disgust. I wanted to grab her hair and smash her head into the floor, but I suppose my paternal instincts took over. I limited myself to slapping her across the face. After that, I took off my wedding ring and threw it in her face too. Without a word, I left the apartment and quickly drove to my parents' house, narrowly avoiding 2 car crashes. I stopped at the nearest supermarket, bought 3 bottles of the cheapest whiskey, and arrived at my parents' house. I went up to my old room, locked myself in, and drank. I chugged that whiskey like water, didn't even get drunk off the first bottle. I called my boss and asked for a couple of days off, citing family problems. Something in my voice must have conveyed the gravity of the situation, because my boss didn't argue and immediately agreed to give me the time off. The next 3 days passed in a fog. I didn't let anyone in the room, only coming out to use the bathroom and get water from the kitchen, barely talking. Now, I'm grateful to my parents and daughter for leaving me alone and giving me space. Those days, it was only on the fourth day that my mother knocked on the door and said my wife had come by with Angel. I stated our daughter would stay here and asked her to kick my wife out. My mom just shook her head and said we needed to work it out between ourselves since we were fighting. A few minutes later, Alice entered the room, her face a mixture of guilt and sympathy. But I didn't believe a single emotion. This woman was a viper in my eyes. Now, she asked, "How are you feeling? Can we talk? How did you even have the audacity to come here?" I said, "Do you hate me?" "I understand how you feel right now," she said. "I know how much this hurts, but please, at least try to listen to me." "Answer one question first," I interrupted. "Was I ever a bad wife, a bad mother, a bad homemaker?" I started ignoring her words completely. "I'm filing for divorce and getting custody of our daughter. I'll come by after work tomorrow to get our stuff." The faint emotions disappeared from her face, replaced by more genuine contempt and anger. "Don't count on it," she replied. "You won't even try to listen to and understand me." "Understand what?" I asked. "If you said you'd met another man and fallen in love, I would understand. What is there to understand about your situation? How can you be such a heartless, cynical monster to cheat for no reason, just for your own pleasure? I don't want to talk to you, see you, or hear you ever again. Let's just get a civil divorce without drama. The court will decide custody of our daughter, but I'll insist on taking her." In that moment, Alice resembled a cunning, ruthless demon, willing to do anything to get her way. My wife threatened not to grant the divorce because she was pregnant with my child. I doubted it. Even if she used protection with her lovers, there was no guarantee or certainty the baby was mine. Even if it was mine, I wanted nothing more to do with this woman. Sensing her claim had no effect, Alice moved to her most underhanded strategy. If I insisted on divorce, she vowed to reach out to all her lovers who had good connections. She promised to make my life a living hell, get me fired, and strip me of rights to see Angel. She painted a bleak picture of my future in her hands, blackmailed, and smeared as the jerk who dared abandon his pregnant wife. But it sounded more like a hollow threat than the truth. Thankfully, I was on good terms with my boss, an ex-military man, and knew that after an honest account of what happened, he would tap his own connections to aid me if my wife actually dared pursue that route through her lovers. I intentionally kept this ace up my sleeve and didn't mention it to her. Cursing and calling me a bastard, she stormed out of the room, slamming the door loudly. I heard her try to take our daughter, but my parents refused and kicked her out of the house. Before she could start spreading rumors, I spoke to all my close friends and gave them the full honest story, securing their support. My boss and I also had a good talk about my impending divorce, and the kind man agreed to help if my wife actually risked going the backdoor route through her lovers. When they got wind of her pregnancy, they refused assistance because they assumed the child was mine and didn't want to get involved with a hysterical married woman. The divorce proceedings dragged on until the birth of the baby, a boy who, to my relief, DNA tests proved was not mine. When the truth came out, I felt vindicated yet exhausted. Alice had been grating on my nerves throughout the pregnancy but instantly backed down when the paternity results arrived. Now she had no power over me, and I felt free. When the divorce became official, I don't know what became of her after that. According to the same friend who knew about all her lovers, none of the men wanted to take paternity tests or deal with the mistress and child. Beyond that, I know nothing of her. As for me, I continued living with my daughter at my parents' house. I hired a good lawyer who helped split assets fairly in the divorce and ensured Angel stayed with me. Being a child, she missed her mother at first, so I allowed Alice to visit on weekends with my parents present. I avoided seeing that woman myself. I hope that when my little girl grows up, she doesn't turn out like her mother and finds happiness in marriage with the man she loves.